Hi. Hello.
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 Hello and welcome to Architecting.
Well, yeah, welcome to Colorado.
Yeah, good to be back.
It's great to have you again here. Yeah. When because do you speak here at this conference?
I did
a while ago.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe 2010 or something. I don't know. I can remember. And then but I also went to high school.
Oh, really?
Colorado Springs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from 8th to 11th grade, so 4 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What high school?
Whitefield.
Whitefield. Okay.
It's south of Colorado Springs near Fountain.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So we were in the Will Rogers League.
Oh, yeah.
So we Cheyenne Mountain and all these other programs that we used to football and wrestling.
Oh, yeah. My wife is from Colorado Springs.
Oh, is that
right?
right?
Down there, but I don't know the schools that well. I think it was at a new school, but yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're coming back home here. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it was 50 years ago. I hadn't thought about that.
Wow.
Yeah, I graduated.
He's old, huh? Yeah.
I can't believe that. It was 50 years ago. So they probably would be having their 50th anniversary, and I didn't get invited. It would have happened this summer, most likely. That's it. Oh, well. We move on.
Yeah. But, I mean, you've moved around a lot in your life, right?
Yeah, my dad was in the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
So we were stationed at Ent Air Force Base. I don't know if it's still there. But the Air Force Academy was
okay.
really
Yeah.
and stuff like So,
and were you born in Germany? Is that right? Yeah.
At the base.
At the base? Yeah.
first in Feldbrook, yeah.
Huh.
So
I think it's the Simon like in Elvis Presley where he met.
no, actually, unfortunately, it's the one where the Israeli athletes were blown up.
Oh, really?
By the terrorists in the 72 Olympics. Yeah, it was right at that air base.
So how long were you there?
I was only there like a year and a half, and then
We moved there. My parents were married there.
Yeah, right.
No, she brought your mom brought her wedding dress
Yeah, on a boat.
over there.
Oh, but she wasn't German, but she was.
No,
Yeah.
she's American.
They're from Alabama.
Like they were like met in high school or something, It's this back then, where they get married young.
Yeah.
We moved back to Alabama, and then we moved to the Philippines, and then to South Florida, and then to Colorado, to Montana, and then back to Florida, before I went to college.
Wow. And then where'd you go to school?
Auburn.
Auburn.
Yeah.
For undergrad.
Yeah, and I practiced 10 years in southern Louisiana and Boston, and then I went to Syracuse and Florence, so a year at Italy.
Yeah.
I got my master's.
Nice.
Then I started teaching at Syracuse, and then decided to come back south and wound up in Arkansas.
Nice. And you, where were you? What formed you? Yeah.
I came to college to the U.S. from Malaysia.
Ah, okay.
I grew up there, and then I knew that college would be abroad, and I ended up in the U.S. and I went to University of Miami. And that's where I got my architectural degree. University of Miami at the time had just split from the architecture was architecture engineering.
Ah, okay.
A few years before I got there, and they had just split into a new, fully architecture, a standalone, degree, not under engineering. Because people ask me, like, why Miami? I was like, I don't know. I think it was the cheapest. But the one that
Maybe the climate was similar, or
I think it was just that. They had just broken away, so they were trying to kind of drum up business to give it a little cheaper for folks like me, international student goes. And anyway, so I got there, and I thought, America, I've never been here, and I thought it was like, I tell one of this, it's like the love story. I imagine it like the fall with the brick building covered in ivy. But I arrived with a suitcase like in the middle of August in Miami. I remember like the door open, the big door open, and I got hit with like heat, even hotter than Malaysia. I was like, wait, I thought America was cool and all of this stuff. Like it wasn't. I had no idea where I was going.
Was that sort of the peak of like the new urbanism kind of going around out down? And like sort of Bob Stern was down there.
Players Zyberg.
Okay, you want to underdone? Yeah, running.
Liz Players Zyberg.
Yeah, I think it was happening around the time I was there.
Right.
But I remember, they teach a lot of very classical principle, like a lot of like historical based architecture. We would have to trace like Shinko and Ledoux. Oh, I had what is it? Ledoux?
Beautiful drawing.
Like all of those things, so like drawings and detail, like some pretty serious, and they want us to look at Korea or whatever, But I was an international student, like Miami at the time had just started like study abroad in the AA London, and it was like, wait, you can go to London, like you can go to the AA. I'm like, I'm gonna go there because they can pay me, my scholarship paid me wherever I go. So I went over there, and I think that's when like everything kind of like broke apart for me because all of
That's a very different experience.
Yeah, at the time it was like all John Hager kind of like experiential architecture. Like it not only like it's about building, but about the experience embedded into experiencing architecture. It made me totally confused, but I really liked it because I thought that, it kind of opened up for somebody like me. Like it's not just one thing, that is many things. And being in the center of the UK, like this is like around the corner from the British Museum. Like you would see fashion, like you would see St. Martin's College play student from St. Martin fashion, like on the street. So like your senses were hyper perceptive to those things, and being able to like go to all the free museum, like the Tate and the National Gallery and the all the things that you could do as a student. So it was more than I could ever imagine. So by the time I got back, I think my professors all hate me.
You ready to blow up that school? Say, all right, here's some ideas. Let's try this out.
You might be doing stuff like the AA stuff back in your senior year in University of Miami. You're like, you're not going to get a good grade. In fact, they were like trashing us. But, I think like they were mad because we were not following what they want us to do. We were just exploring what we had just learned. Like I don't think we were rebelling, but I didn't think that we got a good grade, like in your senior year, which typically you would. I think because they were just mad. I think we're like, why did we send the students like abroad? But in addition to going to the AA, I also went to a study abroad in Italy, and our program was in Venice. So, just experiencing all of that, like kind of, I just felt like, I thought it was very interesting.
Well, and it's so interesting, but just the idea of how you're influenced as a young architect and how that can set you off on a different path. Like, it's a real treat having you here. So I'm teaching a graduate studio at CU right now, and we're redesigning the architecture school. So the big idea is, right, like trying to get them to understand or articulate what is architecture, what they think architecture is, and how it should be taught in what environment. And so we did a big dive on precedent, of course, but the whole studio is about sort of how you can make ideas in architecture more accessible to more people. So we did short form videos for everything. And so I had them each study an architecture school, and one of them was your Arkansas school, and one of them was Tom Pfeiffer's Clemson school, and he came to our class last week, and we talked with him, and now talked with you here. But
that's cool.
So I really pushed the students to be like, okay, what formed these architects, and like what's the background of the school, and how did that come together? And so it was really interesting to see them come up with these sort of hypothesis on like what was going on in Marlon Blackwell's head when he was designing the Arkansas school, and how he's taking all these ideas of architecture and putting them into this thing. And I watched the video today. I was like, maybe I'll show it to them and see if they're right. But it wasn't a very good video. But
what did they say? What did they think was going on? And that's what.
That's a good question. I mean, I think he was able to dive into your background of sort of like we got into a little bit there. But then we were kind of questioning like, well, how did you end up then coming back to the South and going to Arkansas? And I really love, especially being in Denver, I love figures like you. And others who really dive into the kind of the local, right, and then have a national presence and elevate the architectural sort of discourse. So I guess the question is, was that your idea of, going from Syracuse, going there, coming back to this place and really diving in for this long?
Yeah, I mean, I think I felt like my roots, culturally and otherwise were in the South. I really wanted to go to North Carolina, where I had done some work and had published. I thought, well, I would teach at the North Carolina State. There was a guy named Frank Harmon who was there, but they weren't looking. And then I went to Arkansas, and I sort of fell in love with the landscape and the schools in this total midst of change. And I interviewed, and they offered me the job the next day. I was kind of taken aback a little bit, And I said, I'm not so sure. I thought it was supposed to be like a courtship or something.
Right.
And I said, well, tell us, what would it take for you to come here? What would we need to do? And I said, well, I'm not a intellectual. I'm not a scholar. I'm just a practitioner who wants to teach. I want to practice what I preach. And I said, so I'd really like to start a firm. And the dean said, if you'll come here, I'll guarantee you commissions to start your firm.
Wow.
I was like, cool. So I back told the dean at Syracuse Law. I was like, better go. So, yeah, and he was true to his word. So, yeah. So, and then that's how that. But I also was was familiar with Fay Jones at the time, and he had a saying, because he had Edward Durrell Stone, who's from Fayetteville, who was constantly bugging him about coming to New York to work, and he finally put his foot down because he had been working for Frank Lloyd Wright. He went to Rice, got his graduate degree, and doing some teaching at Oklahoma, and then deciding to kind of set up shop in the 50s and start teaching in Arkansas. He finally pushed back at Mr. Stone, and he told me, he said, because Stone was telling me, you need to come out to the world, get out of the boonies,
Right.
And like Stone had done. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, Mr. Stone. I'm going to bring the world to me. So I'm not worried about going out to the world. I want to bring the world to me. So I thought that was a really good position because he had made a national presence with his firm. And I thought, well, he's already done it. Maybe it can be done.
Right.
And so that was an inspiration for coming there. And then I think also never having been a citizen of any place, because you travel around, I think I learned from some mentors and influence that if you want to make architecture where people want to linger in and stay, you have to stay in a place. He said, there's a lot of architects that just move around, and they make architecture that makes you want to move around. He said, which is fine, but the architecture of the move, people don't really want to come back. They go through it once and they're done.
Right.
So to linger has stored energy, and every time you come, it's different. And so I had a guy I really looked up to. He told me, he said, you've been running all your life. It's time to put some roots down. And he said, the best architects have roots. So that's what made a huge change. And then I talked her into coming, thinking she thinking we'd only be there two or 3 years, and we've been there 33 years.
So yeah, where did you guys meet?
Miami. My first public lecture, I was living in Boston, was at the university.
Oh, wow. You sat in the front row and just waved
I
everywhere.
was like, actually, as a young intern, I was supposed to go back as part of my scholarship. Like, I get my education paid so that I could work for them for 10 years. So, but when I graduated, there was a big recession in Asia. They were like, okay, we don't have a job for you yet. If you can get a job, like, being an architect, you can get some experience while we kind of situation in economic situation all over Asia will improve. So
I was wanting to take that off.
So I would be like, I would leave the year or two. So meanwhile, I was lucky enough to have friends that had their parents or something had an architecture connection. So that's how I would intern in the office. Meanwhile, waiting because I'm responsible to pay back for my education through service. But it never happened. After year 5, they were like, all right, we can't hold up our side of the thing, of the bargain, so we're gonna sign off. You can just go do whatever. Meanwhile, I just had Marlon. I went to his lecture because a friend that organized a lecture just like this. They were like, all right, I'm doing a separate lecture that's not classical. It's about young people, young architects that are emerging or different thoughts, And he started calling all the folks, and they were like, make sure you show up. So it was a Thursday night. I'm like, do I really want to go to a lecture? But you know what? I want to go support my friend. So when I was there, it was a big auditorium. It was very ambitious, 100 people. And I was in the back, not like totally in the back, but kind of in middle. So I was watching Marlon, and I thought it was good. I wasn't expecting a lot, because I don't know these people. It's not like Ram Cool, somebody like that, So you go, after it was over, I went down, me and my friend.
You had a bunch of notes for him? Yeah. So
I went down and I said, Mr. Blackwell, are you enjoying your lecture? And that was it. And I went to say to my friend, I was like, hey, thanks for, I showed up to your lecture, okay? So don't bug me next time. Like I'm not going to show up. So that's how we met.
That's funny. So what were you doing in that 10 years between undergrad and grad? Like what sort of formed you architecturally past school?
Well, I moved to South Louisiana. I was engaged to a Cajun roots, and there was a lot of work on the World's Fair at the time in 1980 for the 84 World's Fair. Yeah, so I went to New Orleans thinking I was going to work for Perez Associates, but I didn't have any experience because I'd spent my summers with my family. Mighty put me at school site. What I did during the summers, I worked for a college program selling Bibles door to door in the rural South, and managed to put my way through school that way. So I didn't have any experience in an office, so I just kept running into that problem in New Orleans and then Baton Rouge, and then I got to Lafayette with about $7, a green and rust 71 Cutlass, Olds Cutlass.
You run out of Bibles.
I run out of money and gas. I had about a half a tank of gas, which wasn't going to get me to Houston. So somehow I got a job, and this guy offered me a position, so that's where I landed. And I worked there for 4 years, and it was a recession. I was laid off 4 times in 4 years, but I got a good experience. I did a lot of freelancing on my own just to learn more. Even some of the firms I worked for, they were giving me freelance just so they could get my skills up, because I wasn't a great student. I mean, I had talent, but I wasn't disciplined, and I didn't take advantage of the educational opportunities that I had at Auburn. Also, I didn't think it was a particularly great time at Auburn either. This is one of those things.
It was before Rural Studio. Oh, yep, way before.
We're in a transition period.
In school, he said, but like as part of AIA, like organization,
We wasn't particularly really great.
Trying to find a
designer.
Learn how you do your laundry. Yeah,
There's a
Lots
lot
of things to learn.
I think somebody went to Boston. One of their friends grew, so he went. Yeah, and then when he went to Boston, he realized like everybody that he worked in his offices are graduated from Ivy's, like however, and they get to do all the best design. Marlon gets to do like the lobby renovation. Like, look.
Well, I wound up in Boston, and everybody wanted me. I had 4 years experience, and but I was very somewhat intimidated because it was like MIT, Harvard guys, and so the job I decided to take when they went to post-discuss salary, they made an offer that equated this so much per hour. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll take $1 less. And they looked at me and was like, you want less than what we're offering? I said, well, I don't know how I stack up, but I want to improve myself, and if I prove myself, then they'll give me a raise in 3 to 6 months. Okay, they were like, this guy's weird.
What office was that?
This was an office called CBT in Boston. It's a big firm, a good, competent firm, but not the super hot design firm, but they were very well respected. But anyways, I spent 5 years in Boston, and I learned a lot. It's very formative. I lived in cool places. My freelance work started to take off. I got published in '88 in Architecture magazine with a small garden house that I had done with a landscape architect, formal garden house. And then in '90, my first house was an architectural record home, which was, it's like, so I'm working 9 to 5, but after hours, I have my own independent after-hours studio.
Right.
So I am hustling lectures, competitions, doing freelance, whatever I can do to kind of level it up. And I did at a certain level because I worked, and a lot of those folks that I was so impressed by, they talked a lot. And I did find that too, that the firms in Boston really liked folks from the South because they would get in there and work, but they also were like worker bees,
right?
And so
they elevate the other
ones. I had Tom Main tell me this once. Remember when one of the architecture prize, Academy of Arts and Letters, he was talking. He was like stream of consciousness talking. I never respond because I didn't get a chance here. I finally get the chance to respond, and he realizes I'm not from New York. He goes, so where are you from? I said, well, I'm in Arkansas. Oh, Arkansas. Yeah, I said, I teach at I love the University of Arkansas. Those 5-year programs. I said, yeah, man, I love those 5-year programs. Man, if I want, designers, folks, that's what I go for the 5 years. But if I want leaders, I go to the Ivy Leagues, Yale, Columbia, and it was like, wow. And it's like, so why can't we do both, right?
Right.
Kind of thing. But yeah, that was the category. But, after a while, you'd look around in Boston, you realize that it's a pecking order there. if you're not independently wealthy, blue blood, pedigree degree, well connected, you're just gonna wait.
Right.
And I was talented, but I didn't. It's saturated with talent. So I finally decided I needed to go to grad school, and which is what I did in Italy, kind of to explore Europe, which is a great education. Just traveling, seeing all the great modernist works, had great teachers. It was a great experience. And then I came back, and then I sort of wanted a teacher practice.
And that's when you got the commissions and the teaching job.
Things started coming together.
Yeah.
And the idea was to be the sole proprietor, noble savage, doing 2 to 3 projects a year. Do that for 30 years as a teacher. You got 60-something projects, really great portfolio. You've done well, and life is.
Yeah.
But after about, I'd say 8 years of that, I realized, man, dealing with people's personalities and the whole effort of getting things built because nobody wanted to build what you designed because it looked different from other stuff. And so you're managing it yourself. And so I just started to move into public work. And that's where we've kind of.
So that was a real choice there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting, the idea of like, okay, yeah, I'm hustling at this firm in Boston, but I'm still trying to do lectures. I'm still trying to get things published and built. Like it seems, and then you go to Syracuse and Europe, and it's even more mind expanding. And you get down to Arkansas. Sort of getting back to that question I had to the students, like, are you able to articulate your idea of architecture? And like even back then, and it's not normal for a young person to want to be lecturing on things, but like.
No, well, what I was doing at the time was, it best got articulated by a book called Seeing is Forgetting the Name of the Thing One Sees, which is a book by Lawrence Weschler about the artist Robert Irwin. And I read it, and it was like it synthesized everything I'd been thinking about, was this idea of using direct experience, your day-to-day, as a source of inspiration, as a source to which you could draw from for the work, right? Because trying to create empathy through the work, right, and in an experiential way. So things that are more tactile, sensory, the whole phenomenological kind of approach at the time. The challenge was just to come up with a language or vocabulary.
That gives you sort of half of it, right?
Right, a voice.
So what is it? What's the
right? So when I got out of school and I was working that 10 years, a lot of the projects I was looking outward, and postmodern stuff, Michael Graves or Alvin Rossi, they're kind of that sort of language until you started to find your own language in your own voice, internal it. So that's the patient search, right?
Yeah.
And that search is more internal, I think, inward focused. And that's what I was on, not realizing it.
Yeah. And for you, was that, looking at from the outside, it's taking that Southern sort of vernacular of different elements and things, but then simplifying it and putting it to these.
Sam Motby, who was Albert. I knew his work for the 10 years I was out, and that was interesting how he sort of put a twist on the vernacular things. We call it the strangely familiar. Like to say, our task as architects is the task of recreating strangeness. And so that then, you start looking at outsider art, you start looking at the underbelly, which as a Bible salesman, I got to experience the underbelly and these way out places that nobody goes to, right? And, I went to like chicken fight, cockfights, and all kind of strange sort of cultural things, literal barn dances, with, psychobilly. William Hilda is called psychobilly bands, and, just crazy stuff. And crazy.
And selling during that, right?
And
it's a marketing thing,
yeah.
right?
And so I my Southern roots, I was triggered by this sort of the uncanny or that. But then combine that with this rise of the Swiss. And so I got introduced to the work of Zumthor, Herzog de Meuron, highly, material culture, work that really comes out of the place, and work that was less about form and more about surface. So I invited those guys to come, and they came, and I had Herzog de Meuron for 3 days, Ati and I, And zoomed through there for 3 days. Had brought Robert Irwin. I brought the writer Greil Marcus, who wrote Mystery Train and Lipstick Traces. Where it's like a roux of all of this stuff going on. Plus, you're in your place, right?
Right.
And
I think we didn't want to fall into the trap of like taking the vernacular and making it that, you know.
Yeah,
the
well, especially at that
vernacular is
postmodern time, right? I mean, it could be an easy trope
yeah, it was
It's kind of hard to start with that, but then translating into something that we see because it's like in Arkansas, you know, you have it's certainly in Northwest Arkansas where the university is based. There is a tradition. There's been a tradition of modernist architecture through Faye Jones and Boris Seagraves and several other folks, right? But it's still era too. Like it's now how do we take that and also all the regional influences in that area and celebrating that, but at the same time creating something that's just uniquely of the contemporary mode that we get to affect as well as architects. And I think now we have a lot of contingent of young architects graduate that are like, you know, modeling after that, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Right? Not only in Arkansas, but within the region.
how do you become gently transgressive? You know? So I got a chance to teach with Peter Eisman for a year.
Yeah.
And that was very influential. And I started, that word transgressive started coming because we had won some design awards, which we never did. We never did awards, never published purposely. And then had to do it so I could get tenure. I remember getting critiqued from an award we won. And I said, why didn't we win the top award? And one of the jury members said, well, because you never transcended the vernacular. I was like, oh, you know who that was? That was Steve Dumas. I ran into him in an airport in Dallas. What was that jury? The Barnhouse.
Oh, okay.
He said never so it wasn't like it was bad, it was good, but I realized I've got to go deeper.
Yeah, and it was a real cool
I can't
switch.
I can't observe the world around me like postcards, right? I've got to get beyond what I see.
Yeah.
And I remember when we got that project, the commission to redo the school of architecture. So it's like not only you're taking the existing building that used to be the library, it was stacked, the middle was a stack, and turning that into renovation to the School of Architecture that's now going to house architecture, landscape, and interiors. It's never been housed under one roof, but also adding an addition. So the standard, I remember talking about it with, well, you know, everyone else was expecting us to respect the tradition of our building. So, yes, the Bozark be like the thing, you know, like the king of the little, and like whatever we do has to be quiet and not, and we're like,
Don't forget that. We have to rethink this, you know?
Yeah, but I think it was so interesting what you did there, right? Of the initial bar building, and you duplicated the bar, and you'd have that
same
courtyard
proportion.
in the middle, same proportions.
Same scale.
And then my student did a wonderful diagram comparing the two facades, right? And how you translated the columns into glass fins, and how you were looking at translating hip roofs into balconies. And
I think the fact that, you know, we included that as a study in sustainability, like in some ways, because it's facing the west side with those frontages, so all those things, but like we didn't talk about it that way. But like Marlon talks about, like if you look at the old building, it has a mast with the punch windows. On the other side, we wanted to make the whole window a wall. So rather than the differentiation between
figure ground.
Yeah, figure ground is
We reversed it. We inverted it.
and then also the figure starts to become animated through the form.
Right.
You know, like all of the things that we did. And the funny thing is people were trashing like the blog back then, you know, the Arkansas Architects did not like the fact that we got the commission. You know, they were like not happy about it. But after it was over, I think everyone kind of forgot about it. They loved it. They realized that it was a rethinking. And how do you take something that has such a strong historical presence and a historical language, and how you can still have your own design, and completely contemporary, also make that have accent and resonant with each other. And it's still one of our favorite. When you go inside, particularly for me who deals a lot with the intersection of inside and outside, inside is like how the detail some things like the cut was
just that linchpin of the red void piercing through and bringing them together.
We call it the reticulus.
Not the oculus.
Bringing the light in. You can't tell from the picture, but it's actually skylight.
By 20-foot piece of glass.
And having those spaces around it before it comes out.
And the thing is, like, what we didn't talk about is that the bead, it is actually of course, a sustainable, measure, right? You're trying to bring light in the middle of the space. It didn't not only brought light, it saved the energy, but at the same time, it transformed the space. The sense of well-being that you feel being inside was completely different than when it used to be before. We didn't change the proportion of the room. It's still being used as a transitional gallery space. But, just embedding, including acoustic, because it was loud before, so now it's very quiet and tempered, like having skylight that wash the whole space. Like all the things that you don't really see and we don't really talk about, it really is very transformative. It's like it's a much more healthy space to be throughout the building.
Right.
More so than it was before.
Yeah. Well, I hate doing this, but they're flagging me now. You guys had to jump on the stage in like 2 minutes, 5 minutes here. But
Okay, well, I hope this is helpful.
No, this has been very, very, very fun. Well, great. Again, thank you for coming. I'm looking forward to the talk here in a little bit. And
You can visit architecting.com, that's architect-ing.com, to see images from this week's guest.
And please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Have a great week and keep connecting.
This podcast is powered by The Plug.